Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, authors, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we are joined by a highly accomplished doctor, photographer, documentary filmmaker, and the author of The Pulse Cure, Dr. Torkil Færø. Dr. Færø, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matthew. Very nice to be invited to talk about the Pulse Cure. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. And before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLink's intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 security operations center, we monitor your computers, networks, and cloud accounts using a combination of AI and highly skilled cybersecurity technicians to detect any signs of attack or intrusion. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Dr. Færø, thanks for coming on the show today. I just finished reading your book and I absolutely loved it. I think it's a must read for every business owner and really every human who's not in kind of peak shape and doing a great job managing their stress as well. But for normal people, can you tell us what was the inspiration for your book?
The inspiration was that I became aware of the autonomic nervous system as very vital for our function. And it was, I think, underappreciated while I studied medicine. We doctors were not very focused on it. And as I became aware of that, the watches and smart watches, the Aura rings and the Whoop bands and so on can measure the stress levels, I understood that this is very important. This can be so important for our health. And initially, I became interested just for my own part to be more healthy, and because I've had quite a health journey myself. I used to weigh like 40 pounds more than I do now, and I used to drink more alcohol and smoke and do a lot of things that is not compatible with being a doctor. But then my father died at 73, and then I took a real turnaround. I oriented myself towards preventative healthcare to educate myself on how to stay healthy. And among those things were tracking the autonomic nervous system. And I used it on myself to get more fit. And my publisher asked me, "Is this a book for us?" And then I thought, okay, it may be. And now actually it has been on the bestseller list in Norway for 60 weeks running. Wow. And as the only book, I think the second most book has been running about AI, has been running for like 45 weeks. So it has been a tremendous success, and I'm so happy that it's already released in the UK in English and that it has found an international audience.
Yeah, well, I think you're going to have a similar success in the US because, quite frankly, it is just such a well-written book. It takes you through beautifully kind of your journey and understanding of things. And it's funny because we expect doctors to already know this and know everything about health because you're a doctor. You're giving advice and you're helping treat people's illnesses. So surely you understand the nutrition. And it's funny that we're really kind of in the Stone Ages when it comes to health and nutrition. We're doing great in a lot of areas in medicine, but when it comes to nutrition and health, it seems like we're way behind on where you'd expect us to be in terms of what we know about the human body and how it deals with nutrition. Would you agree, or am I kind of out there?
Yeah, I agree, but it's also very hard because the stores are filled with food that is not good for us, that is factory produced ultra processed food that really damages our intestinal system and creates inflammation. And so it's hard to eat eat the right thing. You know, we have the whole food industry against us, really. So it's hard as well to do the right thing, even if you would know what is the right thing. But when it comes to the autonomic nervous system and the doctors, I think the problem is that we haven't really had a gauge or a laboratory result for finding out the state of it. And what measures it is the heart rate variability. So our pulse, our heart rate can tell us whether we are in the stress state or in the relaxed state. And that is new, I think. That the most important is that using the smartwatches, we have this instrument in our hands, literally, so we can take control of our own health instead of leaving it to the doctor. So it's just obviously a more expensive way to do it, you know.
100%. So you mentioned heart rate variability, and I think that is a relatively new kind of term for a lot of, I think, for the industry, you know, for the world in general, it's relatively new. But for I think the average person, a lot of people might not know what that is. Can you kind of break that down and explain what it is and why is that important?
Yeah, the heart rate variability will tell you if you are in the stressed sympathetic state or in the de-stressed parasympathetic state. And what it does, the heart, when you breathe in and the lungs are filled with oxygen, the heart rate will speed up a little bit, measured in milliseconds. And when you breathe out and there's a little less oxygen in the lungs, the heart will relax a little bit to save some energy in the relaxed state. But if you are in the stress state, no matter what if it's mental stress or physical stress, it will not decelerate on the out breath. It will keep the same steady pulse. And in this way, the smartwatches and Aura Ring and Whoop Band and so on, they can detect these small millisecond differences and keep track of our system while we are busy leading our lives, you know, communicating as we do now. These devices will keep track of this, both in the moment and throughout the day and night. So we get a quite good measure of our inner state. And that is very important. So because so many of the diseases of the modern world is based on this stress level being out of whack, really.
Yeah. So you know, in that in your book you talk about the kind of stages, and I believe you had about is it 10 stages maybe, you know, starting with things like sleep. Can you go over that?
Yeah, there are some hard stages to go through on this. I call it an expedition because changing your lifestyle is quite hard, even assisted by these devices. So I start with sleep, improving your sleep and getting those 7 to 8 hours of sleep that is healthy, restorative sleep. And then we have the stress levels, trying to work without too much stress. And we are supposed to stress. It's just the load of it that can be too big. And then we need to de-stress, you know, to use breathing exercises, to use cold, actually. It's a very good for de-stressing. And then the nutrition part, knowing which foods are good to eat. And not the least, the time restricted eating, to find out that you should really only eat maybe 8 or 9, 10 hours a day and leave your gastrointestinal system to restore the rest of the night fast. And of course, alcohol is a big stressor. Unfortunately, I used to love that, and and so on.
Same.
So and for women in that in the fertile age, the menstrual the week before menstruation is quite tough. It's quite a load, a physiological load that they need to take into consideration when it comes to training and working hard and so on. So yeah, it's it's multi-dimensional approach to getting the stress in balance.
Well, there is a lot to dive into there. I mean, that's kind of the whole scope of your book, and it's so there's a lot there, and you do a great job in the book of kind of breaking down each one and talking about it in kind of this journey fashion, which makes it an easier read than some sort of, let's say, academic book where it's just kind of hitting you with the facts and it's deep into the studies. It's a really nice easy read. I'd like to go back to where you were talking about stress. And I think for a lot of people, they just hear stress and they think stress bad. I need to not be stressed. But my workday is stressful. My life is stressful. I have all this stress to deal with. Okay, whatever they're talking about, but with stress, I can't. That's just ridiculous. I have to perform at a certain level. I've got stresses. And so I think their understanding and their thinking about stress is is at one point. And you bring up some really good points and perspectives on stress. Can you talk about stress and what it really is, the good, the bad, the ugly, if you will?
Yeah. So stress is good for us. Stress, both mental and physiological stress, it builds us as long as we are able to recover from the stress. And so the stress is important. That was my biggest fear on writing the book, that people would shy away from stress and try to be relaxed all the time. That is not a good solution. You will, we have to stress. We have to both physically and mentally. That is very important. Our forefathers, our ancestors, they were good at stressing. They were good at fighting, at hunting, at fleeing from enemies, and so on. So, but they were very good at resting in between also to recover and build ourselves stronger. So, and there's the difference between good and bad stress. There's a really good book from Kelly McGonigal. She also has some very good TED Talks about how stress can be good for you. So if you think stress is good for you, the heart will pump more blood through your system, and your arteries and peripheral veins will uh, become bigger to get more blood into your whole system. If you are fearful of stress, if you think that stress is bad for you, then these the same vessels will contract, and your heart will pump less blood around the system. So what you think about stress will affect how your body reacts to it physiologically. So you should love stress, really, and there may be not so much a good or bad stress, but it's what you think about it, how you deal with it. That's an important thing. But you also have to recover from both good or bad stress. So even if you are having fun, doing a lot of things all the time, and not relaxing, you can still hit a fatigue or burnout situation. And I read that in American business, there's a McKinsey report that says that I think around 40% of the employees are at the verge of a burnout. So people are stressed, and that's a big problem. And without health, no health, no business. So your a good health is the basis of all performance. And we can also see that if you have your autonomic stress level, good stress level, you have more empathy, you have more understanding of your employees, and you take better decisions when you're in a relaxed state. If you're in a stress state, your prefrontal cortex is not really working at top speed.
Well,
So
I think, it's such a huge kind of perspective shift, paradigm shift, this whole stress, how you look at stress and how you see it. If you see it as bad, well, then it is bad for you, right? So can you walk us through, how one goes about seeing stress as good and positive? What should be, if that's even the right expression, what should be one's perspective on stress, like versus, yeah, let's go with that.
mm,
How should we be
yeah.
looking at stress?
Yeah. So when you think that there are stressful times at work or at home, just think that this can be good for me. This is not necessarily hurting me. And the whole reason for this is the ancient because the only time that our ancestors back a million years ago were fearful was when they were hunted down from an enemy. And that is why the blood vessels contract to minimize the potential blood loss from a bite or an injury. So that is the physiological reason why this happens. So just think that, okay, these are stressful times at work, but as long as I can recover during the night, then everything is okay. But you need to make sure of that because prolonged stress over time will weaken you, even if you think it's good. So you have to relax. You have to be able to recover from the stress of the day into the next day. That's a big research study from Anders Ericsson about the violinists in Berlin, and they found out that the best violinists they were practicing deliberately, but they were also resting deliberately. They were good at rest and performing. So and the conclusion of that study was that you should not spend more energy or push yourself more in one day than you can recover from until the next day. So if you keep borrowing energy kind of from the next day all the time, you're going broke, really. So
Well, that brings up a lot of really interesting questions. So one, can you increase kind of your body battery, if you will, your capacity in one day? So I could imagine that if I weigh 400 pounds and let's say that a really good healthy weight for me is 200, but I weigh 400, then the level of of energy that's required for me to go throughout my day and do things is a lot more than if I were at 200, right? So I get it. If I reduce the amount of weight I have to make my life easier, I'll have more energy to put towards other things. And sure, if I start working out more, let's say I'm running more, I'm using more energy, does that build up my capacity and my kind of body battery to be able to have more energy in the day? Or is it relatively finite and you're using it either to move your 400-pound body around and do your things, or you're using this 200-pound body but you've only got a relatively finite amount of energy in a day? How's that work?
yeah, the problem with being as obese as this is that your whole body is working kind of overtime just for daily functions. And then it would be a lot less energy available for working out. So, and unfortunately, our bodies are very good at spending little energy working out. So I think if you're overweight, the first thing would be to look at the nutritional side and lose weight before you start working out too much, because you would have a hard time recovering from activity if you're that overweight. So then I think that you should start with a restricted eat time window, so that you would eat maybe from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., for example. That's one of the most effective ways to lose weight. And then maybe start just to walk, do the most easy part that you can do over time. So walking and restricting both calories and letting your intestines rest at night, that would be the better approach if you're that overweight. So
Okay. And then if I want, let's say now I've lost that weight, I've gotten down to a good healthy weight. Now I'm if now the question I'm kind of looking for is, or considering is, well, do I have a finite amount of energy in a day? So now I'm a healthy weight, I'm exercising. Can I obviously overdo it? But if you just run 20 hours a day, day in and day out, that's obviously going to be very bad for you. at some level. I get that there are these extreme athletes who do incredible things, but for the average person, who, let's say you're a business leader and you're out there working and you want to get the most out of your day, you want to kind of optimize your health and your energy. Can you increase how much energy you have for a day where you're not borrowing from tomorrow, or is it always about the same set amount of energy?
Yeah, if you train, you go jogging, for example, in a not too hard, then you will build yourself gradually stronger. Your mitochondria, your lungs, your muscles will gradually become better at exerting themselves, and you would build your powers. Yes, you would.
Okay.
But it would go very slowly, and most people, they overdo it. They think it's easy. They go running. That makes for a lot of lactic acid that maybe will require 3 days of restore to recuperate, actually. So that is the good thing about the Garmin watches, that after a run, they will tell you how long time do you need to recover. And that's very good to keep track of. So I try I've been jogging this morning, and when I see that the time for recuperating myself is less than 24 hours, I'm happy. So start slow. Start with something that is possible to do over a long time. That is probably the best advice.
I love it. You talk about how important rest and recovery is. I mean, we've touched on it here, but you also go into it in more depth in the book. So I think everybody appreciates and understands, yes, I need more sleep, right? And if only I had more. And so assuming that people finally have that aha moment and they decide, you know what, I am going to get more sleep. What is the optimal amount of sleep? Is it the same for everybody? Should everybody be getting 8 hours of sleep?
I think according to Matthew Walker, which is kind of the one of the big experts on this, you should have 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep every night. And I used to sleep less. I used to think that being tired was just a nuisance, but that is dangerous, that it increases my risk of getting cancer. It actually doubles my risk of getting cancer. If I sleep less than 6 hours a night continually, or as a habit, I have twice the risk of getting a cancer as the people who sleep more than 7 hours. So, and we didn't know that as doctors, how dangerous getting too little sleep is. So I think the most important thing is realizing how important sleep is, and that it also increases your performance level also. So, and to sleep better, you need to relax in the evening. Not with having a glass of wine or a beer that you feel it's calming you down, because the problem with alcohol is that during the night is a very big stressor. So it stresses your system while you are sleeping. But these like Whoop band, WHOOP, they track their users. And the worst stress is alcohol. The second largest stress factor is actually altitude in the mountains. That is also draining you of resources. And the third one is disease. So actually, alcohol is the worst thing that that crushes your sleep. And other than that, a late meal can destroy your sleep. So try to eat to finish your last meal more than 3 or 4 hours before bedtime. That will improve the sleep. And the good thing about these trackers is that these things that are healthy to do is visible in your heart rate. So when you do the things that are good for you, you will get the confirmation of these trackers, and particularly Garmin watches that are the best device, at least now. This changes the whole time. There's a lot of development in these areas. So if you can keep the bedroom really dark, it should be as dark that you can't see your hand in front of you, and you should have, I'm not sure the temperatures in Fahrenheit, but it should be like 18 degrees Celsius. That would probably be like 55 or so in Fahrenheit. to keep your bedroom quite cool, I think, and quiet. So if you and it's also important to try to go to sleep at the same time every night. That is also very important.
Well, you mentioned 55 or 18, Celsius. That
I'm not sure. I should have
let's see.
Find out the Fahrenheit.
Let me look it up really fast here. It
Maybe
is
60.
65. It's 64.4. So that's quite chilly, right?
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah,
64,
so
so 55, yeah.
64, 65. That's a little chilly, not crazy
Yeah,
cold, but
yeah.
I think a lot cooler than most people set things. I think, we tend to be around 67 at night, 68, and that's cool, but I think 64 even better.
Mm,
You talked
mm,
in your book as well about cold, and not cold while you're sleeping necessarily, but the benefits of cold. And it's funny because we went to when we went to Copenhagen, it was our first trip there about a year, 2 years ago now, for Thanksgiving. And we went there, and the first day we opened up the window at the hotel room, and down in the canal are people. It's about 40 degrees out, right? It's very cold out, just a little above freezing, and there are people in the canal skinny dipping. And I
mm.
was like, oh, well, when in Rome. So I couldn't wait to, throw on the robe, go down there and join in. And it was exhilarating. I
Yeah.
loved it. And ever since, I've been taking a cold shower. Like, I finish my showers with, about a minute of cold water, and it
Mhm.
wakes me up in the morning, gets me going. But you talk about cold, and I think a lot of people they've seen ice baths. That's becoming pretty popular. But I think in general, most Americans are anti-cold. They prefer the warm
Mhm.
weather. They like, living in warmer states. What should be our view on cold, and what are those benefits?
Mm. Yeah, cold is so effective for getting into the parasympathetic state. So that is part of why you feel better after you have had this cold plunges or the cold showers, is that your pulse rate goes down and you relax. So it's a way of kind of hacking your body and calming it down by the cold. And you don't need to go into the really cold water. It can also be around the same temperature than 68 degrees. Also, it can be, you don't need to have ice around you in the water. So it's and that is why athletes, they use a lot of cold to after games, after workouts, exercise, to dampen the inflammation so that they can train more. So the effect of the cold is to get the inflammation in your system down. And it's the inflammation of your body that creates all these diseases, that these lifestyle diseases. So it's a good and healthy thing to do. And because we are too comfortable, it's like a comfort crisis. We are having the same temperature in the car, at home, in the stores, everywhere. We put on clothes, and we are not built for that. So that has a price physiologically when we get too comfortable. So this way of challenging your temperature system is good for you. And it actually recently we have found out that it activates something called brown fat. The brown fat in your body is brown because of the mitochondria in it, and it will regulate your temperature. So um, so exposing yourself to cold, both in the water and also just if it's cold outside, just go walk out in your t-shirt. That's also helpful. So and this is the things that surprised me when I started tracking my physiology using the heart rate monitors. That fasting is good, that cold is good, and even pain can be good for you for your heart rate actually. So a lot of people find out that when they go to the dentist, their heart rate goes down, and and they feel better. So funny enough, but when we need to live a bit more in tune with our biology, So when we do that, it's healthy for us when we challenge our bodies. So this is called a hormetic activity. A hormetic activity is a mental or physical challenge that is voluntarily and that builds resilience in your body and mind. So I think it's more and more people become aware of it. At least in Norway, unfortunately, doctors are not in the front row. It seems like a lot of people that care about their own health know more about this than the doctors. Unfortunately, I don't know about this how it is in the States.
Same.
So
Yeah.
it's the
No.
same. Yeah.
Well, and I think, in the doctor's defense, what they're taught in medical school is not the preventative health, and that and in a way it makes a lot of sense. You need to be treating those, the sucking chest wound. Somebody comes in with a traumatic injury, you need to be able to treat those life-threatening injuries. I get it. And so if that's the focus is on treating those injuries, and you're kind of coming at it from that end, you had a great analogy in the book, of the people, I think, at the bottom of the cliff, and you're airlifting them out because they're all getting hurt, falling down, and the focus is that, we, instead of putting up guardrails, and preventing these injuries, as a society, we're focusing on saving people who've fallen, and we're really doing that in healthcare. I thought that was just brilliantly done. I butchered it just there. You did it beautifully. You laid out beautifully in the book. But I think it's kind of a travesty that's how it's evolved. And so the doctors who went to school and learned how to treat the traumas and heal people, from those, it's kind of come from the wrong direction. Now, so many diseases, and you pointed out beautifully in the book how, so many of the problems, that I'd say probably the overwhelming majority of our health problems, are caused by lifestyle, and it's preventative, right, or preventable. So let's dive into that a little bit, because you talked about inflammation, and I think that's an important one. Stress and inflammation, they're important. Most people have heard inflammation. They understand that, I think a very cursory surface kind of understanding that maybe it's bad. I guess that's some swelling or something. There's not I don't think most people really know what inflammation actually is, and how that relates to their health. Can you kind of clarify that for us?
Yeah, I can say something about that, and I can also say just something about the doctors, because we all have med school education, and it's kind of in the word we studied medicine and not health. So we studied to identify diseases and find out the mechanisms and which medicine is right. We didn't learn how to avoid getting sick, and we didn't at the time, the 30 years ago, so when I studied, we didn't know how much effect that lifestyle had on the diseases. We didn't study that. So that's kind of the excuse maybe for the doctors. But now we find out that most people, most experts, updated experts now say that around 80% of the diseases that we treat are based on inflammation, which is bad cells in all of the body, in all the different organs, that will affect all the organs, including the brain. So also a lot of the mental problems that we have, the mental diseases, is because of the brain cells are underperforming and giving us all kinds of diseases that we are able to explain in words, but it's not necessarily words that are the mechanism for treating them. So often I find that when people start working out, when they start losing weight, when they start making these good choices, the problems that they had disappear. So so that is important. And inflammation means that all in your body there's a lot of cytokines, a lot of different inflammation markers that comes out of these cells that are underperforming, and at the bottom the small parts of the cells that are the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cells, they are also the trouble, so that they are releasing a lot of these inflammation markers that It kind of hurts all the organs in the body. And what's the problem with us doctors is that each are specialized in kidneys or liver and heart and brain and what have you. And but the root cause of all this is this inflammation, this inflammatory state. And once you start doing the lifestyle changes that I describe in the pulse cure, then this inflammation will go down little by little, and you will get better. And this is also the success of the book in Norway, is that you can feel this so fast. And when you have the trackers that you can see the results on your watch, on your app in the phone, then it's so much easier to see it and to adjust your lifestyle.
Well, you talk about the trackers, and I think for most, I'd say for most business people, they want to, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, get to the best solution and implement that. So, what is your recommendation? What's the best device that for measuring
Yeah.
this? Is it the Whoop strap? What would you say is just this is
I
the
think,
best? If you're going to choose one,
yeah, Garmin watches. Garmin
Garmin
watches
watches.
is by far the best, by far. They are the best, not because of the watches in themselves, but they have bought First Beat Analytics, which is a Finnish company, Finnish physiological company, and they have implemented their algorithms into their watches, and that is a big difference. And then also Whoop is a good number two, and also Aura Ring is also good. I heard that Aura had a commercial on the Super Bowl, so they're probably getting quite big, big over there as well, as a Finnish company. But most watches now, even Samsung and Huawei and Apple Watch, have some kind of tracking. And when it comes to Apple Watch, probably a lot of your listeners have Apple Watch. There's an app called Athletic, combination of athlete and analytic. That is quite good. It's not good compared to Garmin, but it's the best one that I've seen so far about the apps from Apple Watch. So and yeah, so that would be the state right now with the
So,
Garmin watches, and
would you
I'm
say?
not sponsored by them. That unfortunately, because Garmin maybe have like 10% of the market. So if Apple Watch was perfect, that would be good for me, because they probably have 40% of the market. But I hope they will improve. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, any Garmin watch, or is it,
Yeah.
are they all the same when it
Any
comes to
any Garmin watch is good enough. Even the cheapest VivoSmart 5, which probably in the States would cost you maybe $100 or somewhere around that. And they will get better as they get more expensive, of course, with more functions and so on. So, but even the cheapest ones for $100 would be fine. It would tell you the body battery, your stress levels, and your VO2 max, and then a lot of useful numbers and statistics that you would get out from that. And you will also be able to see, and that's quite important, you'll be able to see your stress level in this moment. You can tap your watch and see, okay, just now my stress level is this, and then you can start getting more control of it as you see that. And we are terrible at evaluating our own inner state. And that is because historically, all the threats came from the outside. It was from other animals, from food that was, with the bacteria and so on, or water that was not good, and enemies and so on. So we have good eyesight, good hearing, we had a good taste and the smell, but the sense for our inner state was not necessary. Only now it's our inner state that is our enemy now, and we don't really have. I wouldn't now be able to feel if I have 86 in the pulse rate or 60. I'm talking to you. I don't
yeah.
know what my heart rate is or how it feels. So these watches tracking our pulse is kind of a substitute for this sense that we never needed to develop. And the heart rate, of course, can tell us more about the state than we as doctor could really hope for. So and the really best part, as I said, is that we have these trackers in our hands. We have control ourselves, and can maneuver and more easily when we get these numbers.
Well, it's funny because after reading your book, I finished up this morning before the podcast, and I was like, oh, I had a Garmin from running, the Phoenix 6 for running and hiking, and it was in the drawer. I had recently, now here's my problem. I had recently gotten into regular watches. I got, Swiss watches, and I transitioned from an Apple Watch that I found was buzzing me all the time. Once I got into real watches, it became so peaceful. And I get it. I'm constantly telling people that you've got to control technology and not let it control you. And what I do that with every aspect of technology. Yet I let my Apple Watch slip through and ding, 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 buzz me constantly. I didn't realize how much stress that was actually causing me until I transitioned. And then it became so much more peaceful. So now I'm faced with the very new dilemma this morning. I'm not sure how this is going to work. But you know what? I'm going to try it and see if I can, maybe it's weird. Who cares?
And
I'll be interested to see the data.
And you can take out the notifications so that you don't get buzzed all the time. So and also if you are using another watch, as you could do there, and you use the Vivo Smart 5, it looks more like kind of a activity band. It doesn't look like you are wearing two watches.
That might be better.
And you don't even need to have the screen on, so that it will just track you and not be so noticeable that you have two watches.
That's a pro tip. Thank you. I might have to do that because I'm not sure that really works. Well, it's really interesting because I think as we kind of start to understand the effects that that stress has on us and our lifestyle, and we start to look to eat better. You talk about eating better in your book, and I like the approach that you took. But can you, for those who have yet to read it, and hopefully everybody listening will get it because it's just a great book. What is your kind of nutritional advice, if you will, on the food that you eat and how often you should be eating? Because I think that's just so important. And we really struggle in this country. We've had so many fad diets. I mean, people are inundated with information about nutrition, about diet, exercise. There's so much good and bad information. And it is incredibly difficult to know what information they should actually be listening to and implementing. I think you kind of nailed it here with really sound, sage advice that makes sense. It's timeless. So if you could you share that with everybody, what your advice is?
Yeah, the advice really is eat real food. Eat food that your great grandmother would recognize as food, and not this industry made so-called foods. I heard it's not really called food. It's not like non-food. It's not really our intestines. Our intestines are a very vulnerable system. It's just one cell layer from the content of your intestines into the bloodstream. So it's incredibly vulnerable, and 70% of the immune system cells are organized around this, because this is where the war is. That's for the immune defense. And so we need to take really good care of our gastrointestinal tract, and that would be real food that we are made to eat, and vegetables, of course. Eat meat, hopefully grass-fed meat. Get enough of omega-3 fatty acids would be important, and also this time-restricted eating, then to eat maybe 2 or 3 meals in 8 or 10 hours, to try to restrict it into that level, and avoid avoid ultra processed food, and it's not and this snacks, and avoid snacking, trying to have meals that are filling, and avoid snacking in between, because the snacking in between, it's just it's just a trick from the food industry that trying to get more money out of us. They don't have our health in their minds, and they have their own money, of course. And I understand that in Norway, you often say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but that was a slogan by Kellogg's.
Mm-hmm.
It was not really
We got that one
nutritionally
too.
based.
Yep.
Yeah, eat real food that your grandmother would recognize as food, and not overeat. Don't eat too much either. Try to stick to one plate, and yeah.
So then your advice would be not what Kellogg recommends, and basically, don't indulge don't do breakfast. And if you simply do lunch and dinner, just those two alone, and you're
Mm,
eating real foods,
mm,
then that's a great
mm.
start.
Yeah, and avoid fast carbohydrates. Avoid cereals. Try to avoid bread, um, and so on. And at least try to start the day with a meal rich in proteins and fat. That's better. Eat eggs or ham or such things, and also lentils and beans would be a lot better. Then cereals is worse. They will just what is also interesting is to have a CGM tracker, that you have to a continuous glucose monitor, because then you would see how your blood glucose just goes like a roller coaster all day if you start the day with cereals. That's terrible, and particularly for the children, it's giving a lot of stress. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people really struggle with that in the States, and it's I don't know if it's more so than others. I think we've seen the effects of things like not to throw Coca-Cola under the bus, but there've been a lot of studies as when they go into a country and people are drinking Coca-Cola, the obesity rate follows. And so getting
Mm,
those sugary drinks, which everybody knows, like it can't, I mean,
yeah.
this isn't rocket science. It's not, but
Mm,
it's not, this isn't complicated. Everybody knows that. Well, obviously, junk food is not good food. It's in the
mm,
name, right? Everybody
mm,
knows that cigarettes kill. That's not good for you. Everybody knows that alcohol is bad for you.
mm,
And yet, knowing those basic things, these are bad things, people continue to do them. So,
mm,
what is your advice to people on breaking those habits and moving to a healthier
mm,
lifestyle?
mm. Yeah, the advice would be, then when you have the tracker, when you see that your bag of crisps or chips, or I don't know what you call it in the States,
It-
will affect your night sleep, then it's a lot easier to cut it out when you see the result in the graphs and curves that you get from your app. Then it becomes a lot easier to stay away from what you can see hurts you. And
yeah.
after a while, you will feel it too, because at least me, I had no idea that the food and drinks would have this effect on me. I mean, my energy levels will fluctuating throughout the day and night, and wasn't really thinking about what could be the cause of this. It's kind of chaotic. But when you get the measures, then you can identify, okay, it was this food that I eat popcorn instead of crisps, and then it's fine. I'll have a glass of nice water instead, or tea instead of the beer, and the next day is a lot easier to get through. So I think getting these measurable results is the big difference for so many people. So
Yeah. I think for me, it's similar. At one point I was 80 pounds heavier than I am now. And
oh,
I think for me, seeing that my mom passed away a number of years ago when I was a bit heavier, but at 6'4", I can carry 80 pounds. It's not good for me. But
mm,
it wouldn't look the same as if I were 5'4" and I put on an extra 80 pounds.
mm,
Um,
mm,
However, certainly not healthy, but my mom was never very healthy. My dad was never very healthy. And my mom struggled with cancers and then passed away. And I think for me, that was a bit of an eye opener. You see unhealthy people around you. I was being unhealthy, and I think that helped me realize that, you know what, life is short, and if I continue on this path, it's not going to end well for me.
Mm.
And for me, that was a wake up call. And so I changed, and it wasn't until recently that I had yet another realization that despite all my hard work to get healthy and work, I'm working out, 5 days a week. I'm running, I'm eating healthy, and then I'll make progress on my weight loss. Friday comes, I start having some drinks. Saturday comes, I have some drinks. All my progress is gone, and I work all week to just recover from what I did with
Mm.
alcohol.
Yeah,
So it took me
yeah.
a long time to finally break alcohol. And interestingly for
Mm.
me, it was an easy transition with like non-alcoholic beer. We'd go to these restaurants
Mm.
and they'd have great mocktails. And so
Yeah.
it became very easy to enjoy a mocktail instead of 12 actual cocktails, or
Mm.
a non-alcoholic beer that tastes just like beer. So in the moment, you
Yeah.
feel like you were, except you're not paying any of the price of having just had a few
Mm.
beers the next morning and feeling bad. When I was young, it
Yeah.
wasn't a problem.
Mm.
I could drink a bunch of beer and feel great the next day. But now, not so much. As I'm getting
Yeah.
older,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not as easy. So I think that the challenge that a lot of people have is getting to their aha moment, that moment where it all changes and they say, you know what, I'm on a bad path.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people know they're on a bad path, and I think they're overwhelmed by the sheer amount of bad and good information out there, and they don't know where to start. And that's where I think your book comes in beautifully. It
Mm.
gives people
Yeah.
an easy place to start, a great advice to follow that they themselves can recognize as this is sound advice. And you explain it in such a great way in the book that I think anybody
Mm.
picking it up can be like, this is my guidebook on my journey to be living a
Mm.
longer, healthier life.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to make a compilation of the most essential advice on all these different aspects and make it actionable and easy to understand. So that's good that you felt that way, and also there's a big American research on it's more than 700,000 American veterans from the military, and they have tracked them over 11 years. And when they have tracked and they have identified 8 lifestyle habits, and when they have good habits, they live 24 years longer than the ones who don't have them or have the opposite. So it's like decades, of lifetime, of healthy lifetime to save. So it's not just, I think when we studied, we thought that maybe, okay, if you did everything right, you may live 2 or 3 years longer. And what would be the use? Because you were out jogging for those 2 or 3 years anyway. So, why care? But now we see that the reward for doing what you have done is great. You really can affect your health level and your risk of dying a lot. Of course, everything can happen. You can be unfortunate, but like now we see that the cancer, for example, is a metabolic disease more than a genetic disease. We used to think it was genetic. It's pure bad luck or genetic or accidentally. But now we see that our metabolic state is if you have a poor metabolic state, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, overweight, and so on, then the risk of getting cancer is a lot higher.
Yeah. I can certainly agree based off of what I've seen. I'm an old Army guy. I spent 10 years in the Army, and now I'm pushing 50, and my old Army buddies, I mean, I see it. The Army can be tough, and I think a lot of people fall into bad habits when you're young and you're very active in the Army, and you're enduring a lot of hardships. Even the day to day is it's not the most enjoyable, easiest lifestyle. And so I think a lot of them get into bad habits that are compensated for by the physical activity level. And then as they get older and those requirements, aren't there anymore, and they get out of the military and those requirements aren't there at all to be active, they're left with those bad habits. And it is night and day, the difference between me and some of my old army buddies who we're the same age, we went through the same stuff, but they're living a much harder life, and it's not even close. And it's just about the things that you talk about in the book.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to do things every day that is a bit hard, like do some sort of exercise, watch your weight to some extent, and because the price of not doing that is really hard. So it's a lot harder not to do these things than to do them. So, but the good thing about the army research was that even at 60, if you started these 8 different lifestyle strategies at 60, you would live like 16 years longer.
Yeah.
So it's never too late. Earlier we used to think that, okay, if you are 70 years old, you don't care at all, you can do whatever you want. But now we see that it's getting more and more important as you age, really. So, and these, of course, these lifestyle strategies, these 8 strategies are the same as in the pulse cure. It's exercise, it's watching your alcohol consumption, it's not smoking, it's having little stress, it's having a good diet, good nutrition. The only different thing from those 8 steps in this research is the opioids, that the ones who are addicted to opioids. But that's more of an American problem than in Norway. I know the opioid crisis is a lot harder in the States. But other than
Yeah.
that, the 7 other lifestyle changes, it's the ones I have focused on in the pulse cure, and that are measurable. You can see the results when you're on the right track.
Yeah, that never too late to start thing is so incredibly important. I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm already 50, I'm already 60, and it's never too late. I remember I was in when I was in the army in California, I was working out at a Gold's Gym, and I meet this just phenomenally fit couple in their 80s. Their bodies looked like they were like 23 in their prime. They were just it was incredible. Their bodies looked so young from their neck up. They looked 80. The skin had signs of the age, but they were in incredible shape. And I was like, okay, this is, we start talking, and I'm just blown away that these 80-year-olds are lifting. They're flexible. They're just, they might as well be in their 20s. It was incredible. I asked them, like,
Yeah.
have you always been like that? You must have always been athletes and just kept it up. And like, no, they didn't even start until their 60s, when their friends started dying around them. And they were like, well, we're not doing, this could be us. And they were like, okay, that's it. And they started working out and eating well. That's all they did. They're like, there's no secret. You just eat well and work out. The same thing everybody's heard. Do it.
Yeah.
And they were just, it was incredible how fit these people were. And they hadn't ever exercised until they were 60. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, never too late.
Yeah. Good role models.
I know.
Yeah,
Right.
and they do the same thing that because that's interesting, that probably the concept of the blue zones, that Dan Buettner has identified like 8 zones around the world where people live to be 100, a lot more than other places, and they do the same thing. They exercise naturally, the nutrition, everything we have talked about is what they're doing to get to this 100 years old. And also, I don't know if you have heard about Jeffrey Rediger. He's an American psychiatrist, and that has been researching who survives cancers and diseases that they're not supposed to be cured of.
Yeah.
And when they have looked into that, they do exactly the same, and they change all their lifestyles, and then they can stop the cancer. Actually, you're not guaranteed, of course, to do that, but you increase your chances of getting healthier. So the lifestyle is so important,
Yeah, well, this is exciting stuff. I think I cannot recommend your book more highly. I think you said it comes out near the end of April in the States. I know I've already
Yeah.
pre-ordered my copy. I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to having it. You were kind enough to send me an advanced copy digitally, which was fantastic. But this is just such a great book. I wish you all the success on it. I think everybody should read it. It is a no-brainer. Everybody should read it. It is such a great read, and it's such great important information. Not only is it informative, but you provide easy actions for everybody as well. You break it down into the theory and then the implementation. And I like how you, even as you get to that theory part, you're like, hey, look, if you already know this stuff, skip to page 75 where and start with the steps. It's just a great read. So congratulations. But before we go, can you tell everybody, at least in the States, where they'll be able to get their copy and where they can find out more about you and the Pulse Cure?
Yeah, yeah, they would get the copy anywhere. It's a normal book by an American publisher or UK and American publisher. So they would get it on like Amazon or any outlet or any store should probably be able to get it. If they don't have it in the store, they would be able to order it. Me, I'm on Instagram. I'm the Pulse Doctor, so that's quite easier to understand because my name, is very Norwegian with some strange letters in it. So I thought the Pulse Doctor on Instagram is easier to follow. So I will show tips on how to do these things. I'm looking forward to show people. I have a big Norwegian Instagram, or at least it's like 25,000 people. But the English speaking one is I'm building up, so hopefully I can show it to international world as well.
Well, I will be following you as soon as we finish here. We will put links below for people to order your book and to follow you on Instagram.
And also one more thing. Also, we have I forgot to say we have a website called thepulsecure.com, which is a social interactive website where we have courses and videos and blogs and lots of information on thepulsecure.com. So that also.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be going there and we'll put links to that as well. Thanks again for coming on the show. Excellent book. And again, wish you all the success with it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.